What if
Lie
the
with
people
me.
who betrayed you were the very ones God would later use to bow before you? What if the pit you were thrown into was not your end, but the doorway to your purpose? This
Lie
is
with
not
me.
just a story about dreams, it is a story about jealousy that turned into betrayal, about tears cried in silence, about years lost in chains and darkness. It is the story of a young boy sold by his own brothers, forgotten in a foreign land, yet never forgotten by God. A story where evil intentions collided with divine purpose. This is the story of Joseph, a journey from the pit to the prison, and finally to the palace. The land of Canaan lay quiet under the weight of history. Jacob, also called Israel, had settled there in his old age, the same land where his father Isaac had lived and where his grandfather Abraham had once pitched his tents by faith. Jacob was a wealthy man now, with flocks, servants, and many sons born to him by different women. But among all his children, one son stood apart. His name was Joseph. Joseph was 17 years old, young, observant, and still learning the ways of manhood. He often worked alongside the sons of Bilhah and Zilpah, his father's wives, tending the flocks in the open fields. As they worked, Joseph watched closely. He noticed their behavior, the shortcuts they took, the careless things they did when they thought no one was watching. And Joseph talked. When he saw wrongdoing, he reported it to his father. This did not endear him to his brothers. Jacob, however, loved Joseph more than all his other sons, not quietly, not subtly, but openly. Joseph was the son of his old age, and more than that, he was the first son of Rachel, the woman Jacob had loved deeply and mourned when she died, giving birth to Benjamin. To show this love, Jacob did something that would change everything. He made Joseph a robe of many colors, a richly ornamented garment, unlike the plain clothing worn by working men. It marked Joseph as special, favored, set apart. When Joseph walked among his brothers wearing it, the message was clear. This one is different. The brothers noticed. Every time Joseph passed them in that robe, resentment grew like fire under dry grass. They saw the way their father looked at him. They heard the tone of Jacob's voice when Joseph spoke, and deep in their hearts, hatred began to take root. The scripture says they hated him, and they could not speak peaceably to him. Then the dreams began. One night, Joseph dreamed a dream so vivid it burned into his memory. When morning came, he told it to his brothers, perhaps in innocence, perhaps unaware of the danger of words spoken too freely.
We were binding sheaves in the field, when suddenly my sheaf stood upright, and your sheaves gathered around and bowed down to mine.
The room went silent. Then the anger erupted. Do you intend to reign over us? They demanded. Will you actually rule us? Their hatred intensified, not only because of their father's favoritism, but now because of Joseph's dreams and his words. Still, the dreams did not stop. Joseph dreamed again. This time, the heavens themselves were involved. The sun, the moon, and 11 stars bowed down to me, he said. When Joseph told this dream, even his father reacted. What is this dream you have dreamed? Jacob asked sharply. Shall I and your mother and your brothers indeed come to bow ourselves to the ground before you? Joseph's brothers burned with jealousy, but Jacob did something different. He said nothing more and kept the matter in his heart. Time passed. One day, Joseph's brothers were far from home, grazing their father's flocks near Shechem. Jacob grew uneasy. The journey was long, and danger often followed men who wandered too freely. So he called Joseph to him.
Go now, and see if it is well with your brothers and with the flocks. Bring word back to me.
Put on his robe, he left the safety of home, and he walked toward the very men who hated him. Joseph searched for his brothers in Shechem, but could not find them. As he wandered through the fields, a man noticed him and asked,
What are you seeking?
I am seeking my brothers. Please tell me where they are feeding the flock.
They have moved on from here, the man said. I heard them say, Let us go to Dothan. So Joseph continued on, unaware, unprotected, walking straight into betrayal. From a distance, his brothers saw him approaching. They recognized him by the robe, and before Joseph ever reached them, the decision was made. Here comes the dreamer, they said to one another. And with those words, the darkness of human hearts began to move. The words were not casual. They were loaded. Mockery wrapped in hatred.
Here comes the dreamer. Come now, let us kill him and throw him into one of these pits. We will say that a wild animal devoured him.
Then we shall see what becomes of his dreams. The suggestion did not shock them. It excited them. But Reuben, the eldest, heard this and felt a weight settle in his chest. As firstborn, the responsibility of the family rested on him, even if he had already lost his father's trust in earlier years. He knew this moment would stain them forever if blood was spilled.
Let us not take his life. Do not shed blood. Throw him into this pit here in the wilderness. Do not lay a hand on him.
The others agreed, but Reuben's heart had another plan. He intended to rescue Joseph later, quietly, to bring him back to his father and undo the damage before it was too late. Joseph finally reached them. Before he could speak, before he could greet them or explain why he had come, they seized him. Hands grabbed at his arms, voices shouted, anger exploded without warning. They stripped Joseph of his robe, the beautiful garment his father had given him. The fabric tore under rough hands, its colors flashing one last time before it was ripped away. Joseph cried out, "Wait, what are you doing?" There was no answer. They dragged him to a nearby pit, a deep, empty cistern carved into the ground. Its walls were dry and steep. No water, no escape. And without mercy, they threw him in. Joseph hit the bottom hard. The shock stole his breath. Dust filled his mouth and eyes. Above him, the sky was reduced to a small circle, ringed by the faces of men he had grown up with, men who shared his blood. "Brothers," he shouted, "please, let me out."
Why won't you listen?
But his cries were met with silence. They sat down to eat. While Joseph begged from the darkness below, his brothers shared a meal, laughing and talking as if nothing extraordinary had happened. The pit echoed with Joseph's sobs, but their hearts were sealed shut. Then something changed the course of the story forever. As they sat eating, one of them lifted his eyes and saw a caravan approaching in the distance, merchants traveling from Gilead on their way to Egypt. Their camels were loaded with spices, balm, and myrrh, goods meant for trade. Judah watched them thoughtfully. An idea formed. "What profit is it if we kill our brother and conceal his blood?" Judah said.
Come, let us sell him to the Ishmaelites, and let not our hand be upon him, for he is our brother, our own flesh.
It sounded merciful. It was not. The brothers agreed. When the merchants arrived, Joseph was pulled from the pit. His eyes were red from crying, his body trembling with fear and confusion. He looked from face to face. No one met his gaze. For 20 pieces of silver, they sold him. Silver exchanged hands. A human life exchanged hands. Joseph was bound and led away as the caravan moved southward toward Egypt. The dust of their footsteps rose behind them, slowly swallowing the last glimpse Joseph had of his homeland. He called out. No one answered. When the merchants were gone, Reuben returned. He went to the pit, and it was empty. Reuben tore his clothes in anguish. "The boy is gone," he cried, "and I Where shall I go?" But the deed was done. Now they needed a lie. They took Joseph's robe, slaughtered a young goat, and dipped the garment in its blood. The colors darkened, the fabric stiffened. That evening, they brought it to their father. "This we have found," they said carefully. "Please identify whether it is your son's robe or not." Jacob recognized it instantly. "My son's robe," he cried. "A fierce animal has devoured him. Joseph is without doubt torn to pieces." And Jacob wept. He tore his clothes, put on sackcloth, and mourned for many days. His sons and daughters tried to comfort him, but he refused to be comforted.
I shall go down to the grave mourning for my son.
Meanwhile, Joseph was alive, chained, carried away, and heading into a future no one could have imagined. The journey to Egypt was long and unforgiving. Joseph walked in chains behind the caravan, the ground burning beneath his feet, the sun merciless above his head. Each step carried him farther from the hills of Canaan, farther from his father's tent, farther from the life he had known. The voices of the traders were foreign, their language sharp and unfamiliar. Around him, the desert stretched endlessly, indifferent to his fear. At night, when the caravan stopped, Joseph lay awake. He replayed everything in his mind, the robe, the dreams, his brothers' faces as they sold him. He wondered if his father was looking for him, if anyone would come. He prayed, but heaven seemed silent. By the time they reached Egypt, Joseph was no longer just a betrayed brother, he was property. Egypt rose before him like another world, towering structures, bustling markets, chariots racing through streets filled with noise and power. The air smelled of the Nile, rich and heavy. Slaves were everywhere, bought and sold as easily as grain. Joseph was sold again, this time to a man named Potiphar, an officer of Pharaoh and captain of the royal guard. Potiphar was a man of authority, accustomed to obedience. Joseph was taken into his house, stripped of any remaining dignity, and given work to do. But something unusual happened. Though Joseph was a slave, everything he touched began to prosper. Tasks given to him were completed with excellence. Fields under his care flourished, accounts balanced. Servants respected him. Potiphar noticed, and so did the God who had followed Joseph from the pit. The Lord was with Joseph. Day by day, Potiphar entrusted more into Joseph's hands. Eventually, Joseph was placed over the entire household. Nothing was withheld from him except Potiphar's wife. Joseph had grown into a young man now, strong, capable, and handsome. And Potiphar's wife noticed.
"Joseph, you have grown
At first,
strong and handsome."
her attention was subtle, lingering looks, unnecessary conversations. But soon, subtlety gave way to boldness. "Lie with me," she said.
"Lie with me." "Joseph, come to me."
My master has entrusted everything to me.
"And what of me?"
I will not sin.
Day after day, she pressed him. Day after day, Joseph refused, until one day, when no one else was in the house, she caught him by his garment.
"Lie with me."
No!
Joseph did the only thing he could. He fled. He left the garment in her hand and ran out of the house. Humiliated and enraged, Potiphar's wife screamed, calling the servants. She twisted the truth, holding the garment as evidence. "He came to mock me," she said. "I cried out, and he fled, leaving this behind." When Potiphar returned and heard her story, his anger burned. Joseph was seized. No trial, no defense, no mercy. He was thrown into the prison where the king's prisoners were kept. Once again, Joseph descended from favored son to slave to prisoner. Iron chains closed around his feet. Stone walls replaced open skies. The door slammed shut, But once again, the Lord was with Joseph. In the darkness of the prison, Joseph found favor with the keeper of the jail. Soon, he was entrusted with responsibility even there. The prisoners were placed under his care, and whatever was done, Joseph oversaw it. Then one night, 2 prisoners had dreams. One was Pharaoh's chief cupbearer. The other was Pharaoh's chief baker. Both were troubled. And once more dreams, Joseph's old companion returned. Morning light crept faintly through the narrow openings of the prison, casting thin lines across the stone floor. Joseph moved quietly among the prisoners, checking on them as he had been entrusted to do. He had learned the rhythms of prison life, the groans at night, the silence in the morning, the way hope slowly eroded behind locked doors. That morning, something was different. 2 men sat apart from the others, their faces heavy with unease. Joseph noticed immediately. He had learned to read people not by position or status, but by their eyes. "Why do you look so sad today?" Joseph asked. They looked up at him, surprised that someone cared enough to ask. "We have dreamed dreams," one of them said, "and there is no one to interpret them." Joseph paused. Dreams. The word stirred something deep within him. Memories of stars bowing, of sheaves standing upright, of a pit and betrayal. For a brief moment, the weight of his own past pressed against his chest. But he did not turn away. "Do not interpretations belong to God?" Joseph said calmly. "Tell me your dreams." The cupbearer's dream. The chief cupbearer spoke first. "In my dream," he said, "there was a vine before me. On the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, its blossoms shot forth, and the clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand. I took the grapes, pressed them into the cup, and placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." Joseph listened carefully, his expression steady. Then he spoke. "This is the interpretation," Joseph said. "The 3 branches are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your office. You will once again place Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do." Hope flooded the cupbearer's face. Then Joseph added something, his voice softening. "But remember me when it is well with you. Please show kindness to me. Make mention of me to Pharaoh and bring me out of this house, for I was stolen away from the land of the Hebrews, and even here I have done nothing to deserve being put into this prison." It was the first time Joseph spoke of his injustice aloud. The baker's dream. Encouraged by the good news, the chief baker stepped forward. "In my dream," he said, "there were 3 white baskets on my head. In the top basket were all kinds of baked food for Pharaoh, but the birds were eating them out of the basket on my head." Joseph's face changed. He did not speak immediately. Then he gave the interpretation. "The 3 baskets are 3 days. In 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head from you and hang you on a tree. The birds will eat the flesh from you." The silence that followed was heavy. Joseph did not soften the truth. He could not. 3 days later. On the 3rd day, it was Pharaoh's birthday. A feast was prepared. Music filled the palace halls. Servants hurried about with wine and food. In the midst of celebration, Pharaoh gave orders concerning the 2 imprisoned officials. Just as Joseph had said, the cupbearer was restored to his position. He stood once again beside Pharaoh, placing the cup into his hand. The baker was executed. The prison doors closed again. Joseph waited. Days passed, weeks passed, months passed. The cupbearer did not remember Joseph. He forgot him. Joseph remained in prison. No dreams, no explanations, no answers, only time. But though Joseph was forgotten by men, he was not forgotten by God. 2 full years passed. 2 years of routine, of iron doors opening and closing, of prisoners coming and going. Joseph aged quietly in confinement, his hair longer, his body leaner, his faith tested daily. He rose each morning, worked, prayed, and waited, though he did not know for what. Then one night, far beyond the prison walls, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, slept uneasily. That night, Pharaoh dreamed. In his first dream, he stood by the river Nile. From the water came up 7 cows, sleek and healthy, grazing peacefully among the reeds. Then suddenly, 7 other cows emerged, ugly, thin, and gaunt. Without warning, the thin cows devoured the healthy ones. Yet even after eating them, they remained just as sickly as before. Pharaoh awoke, disturbed. He fell asleep again. A second dream came. 7 ears of grain grew on a single stalk, full and good. Then 7 other ears sprouted, thin, scorched by the east wind. The thin ears swallowed up the full ones. Pharaoh woke again. His spirit was troubled. Morning came, but peace did not. Pharaoh summoned the magicians and wise men of Egypt, those trained in mysteries, symbols, and hidden knowledge. He told them his dreams. They listened. They said nothing. No one could interpret them. The silence terrified Pharaoh. Then suddenly, a memory broke through. The chief cup-bearer stiffened. "I remember my faults today," he said carefully. "When Pharaoh was angry with his servants and put me and the chief baker in custody, we each dreamed a dream on the same night. There was a young Hebrew there, a servant of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he interpreted them, and it happened exactly as he said." Pharaoh did not hesitate. "Bring him," he ordered, "from prison to palace." The prison doors opened in a rush. Joseph was summoned. He was hurriedly brought out, shaved, cleaned, and clothed. The chains were removed. In a matter of moments, the prisoner stood before the most powerful man in Egypt. Joseph did not look like a dreamer anymore. He looked like a survivor. Pharaoh spoke first. "I have dreamed a dream," he said, "and there is no one who can interpret it. I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it." Joseph did not claim the credit. "It is not in me," he replied calmly. "God will give Pharaoh a favorable answer." Pharaoh told him the dreams. Joseph listened carefully, his eyes steady, his spirit alert. Then he spoke. "The 2 dreams are one," Joseph said. "God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows and 7 good ears are 7 years. There will be 7 years of great abundance throughout all the land of Egypt. But after them will arise 7 years of severe famine, and all the abundance will be forgotten. The famine will be very severe." Pharaoh leaned forward. Joseph continued, "The reason the dream was given twice is because the matter is firmly decided by God, and God will shortly bring it to pass." Then, boldly, Joseph went further. "Now therefore," he said, "let Pharaoh select a discerning and wise man and set him over the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint overseers to collect 1/5 of the produce during the years of abundance and store it up. Then the food will be a reserve for the land during the years of famine." The room fell silent. Joseph had not only interpreted the dream, he had provided a plan. Pharaoh turned to his officials. "Can we find such a man as this?" he asked. "A man in whom is the Spirit of God?" Then Pharaoh turned back to Joseph. "Since God has shown you all this, there is none so discerning and wise as you. You shall be over my house, and all my people shall order themselves as you command." Only as regards the throne will I be greater than you." In one breath, Pharaoh removed his signet ring and placed it on Joseph's hand. He dressed him in fine linen. He put a gold chain around his neck. He had Joseph ride in the second chariot. And they cried out before him, "Bow the knee!" Joseph, once thrown into a pit, now ruled Egypt. Pharaoh gave him a new name. He gave him a wife. And Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, ruler of Egypt. The dreams were no longer distant. They were alive. Joseph stepped into power not with pride, but with urgency. He traveled throughout the land of Egypt, riding from city to city, village to village, inspecting fields, speaking with overseers, and establishing order. The words he had spoken before Pharaoh were no longer theory. They were instruction, and the entire nation moved by them. For those in the era of betrayal, maybe you feel like Joseph in the pit, misunderstood, rejected, talked about behind your back. You did not do wrong, yet you are the one bleeding. You trusted, you believed, you served, and somehow betrayal found you. Listen carefully. Betrayal does not cancel calling. The pit did not cancel Joseph's destiny. What looks like delay is often development. The years in prison built Joseph's wisdom. The silence you're walking through is not punishment. It is preparation. When men misunderstand you, heaven still understands you. When doors close unfairly, God is not surprised. When you are removed, rejected, or replaced, it is not the end of your story. If you are in the era of suffering right now, do not let bitterness rewrite your character. Do not let pain make you small. Do not let silence convince you that God is absent. Joseph did not grow bitter in prison. Your palace is not canceled. It is being prepared. Stay faithful. Stay steady. Stay soft before God. The story is not over. Prayer in the season of betrayal. Father, you see the pain I carry, the disappointment, the betrayal, the silence. When I feel forgotten, remind me that you are still with me. When bitterness tries to grow, guard my heart. Help me to choose integrity over revenge, patience over panic, faith over fear. If this season is preparation, then strengthen me in it. Shape my character, deepen my trust, refine my spirit. Like Joseph in the prison, let me come out better, not broken. I trust that my story is not over. You are still writing it. Amen.
The preparations are going well.
Yes, my lord, the harvest is plentiful.
Good. We must be ready.